Good morning. I'd like to call to order the open meeting for Thursday, April 10th, 2025. I will now ask the Commission Secretary for information on today's agenda.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, March 20th, 2025, and each has informed me there's no need to discuss the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, March 20, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the agenda, and each has informed me there's no need to discuss the notices associated with agenda items 2 through 23, the draft order to reopen notice and request for comments in docket 5 AE 244 associated with agenda item 24, or the suggested minute associated with agenda item 26, approving the State Energy Program Project Year 2025 Annual Plan as proposed.
I move we approve the notices of investigation associated with agenda items 2 through 11.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move we approve the notices of proceeding associated with agenda items 12 through 23.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. In docket 5 AE 244, I move we approve the order to reopen notice and request for comments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. In docket 9705 FG 2025, I move we approve the State Energy Program Project Year 2025 Annual Plan as proposed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to agenda item 25, docket 5BS 276. This is the joint application of Wisconsin Electric Power Company, Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, and Madison Gas and Electric Company for approval to acquire ownership interests in the High Noon Solar Electric Energy Generation Facility, which I will refer to just as High Noon. The joint application was filed under Wisconsin Statute Section 196.49 for approval to acquire and construct High Noon, a 300-megawatt solar PV electric generating facility consisting of 300 megawatts of solar nameplate capacity and a 165-megawatt battery energy storage system, or BESS. The applicants propose to hold joint ownership of the plant with ownership shares of the facility's solar and BESS capacity distributed among the applicants as follows. WEBCO, 75% ownership, which represents 225 megawatts of solar and 123.75 megawatts of BESS. WPSC, 15% ownership, which represents 45 megawatts of solar and 24.75 megawatts of BESS. And MG&E, 10% ownership, which represents 30 megawatts of solar and 16.5 megawatts of BESS. The total cost of the transaction is approximately $981.1 million, excluding the allowance for funds used during construction, AFUDC, which is approximately $640.1 million for the solar facilities and $341 million for the BESS. The applicants estimate accruing approximately $128.8 million in AFUDC, which, when included with the estimated total cost, brings the total cost to approximately $1.1 billion. The project site is located in the towns of Arlington, Leeds, Lowville, and Hampton in Columbia County. And High Noon is a wholly owned subsidiary of Invenergy Solar Development North America, LLC, and an affiliate of Invenergy, LLC. Invenergy, which was also known as Invenergy, which was granted a CPCN to construct this project by the Commission on July 10th, 2023 in docket 9814 CE 100. While the CPCN was granted in 2023, Invenergy requested an extension to commence construction, citing delays caused by supply chain issues and the need for more time to finalize a generator interconnection agreement, or GIA. I was discouraged by comments filed that implied our pace in taking this item up caused missed deadlines and construction delays. We were not the cause of these delays, and the lack of progress to this point is troubling given the current rapid economic downturn and significant political and regulatory uncertainty unfolding daily at the federal level. Regarding the standard of approval in buy-sell transactions, the Commission may require by rule or special order that no construction or addition may proceed until the Commission has certified that the public convenience and necessity require the project. According to Wisconsin Statute Section 196.493B, the Commission may refuse to certify the acquisition if it appears that it will do any of the following. 1, substantially impair the efficiency of the service of the public utility. 2, provide facilities unreasonably in excess of the probable future requirements. And 3, that when placed in operation, add to the cost of service without proportionately increasing the value or available quantity of service unless the public utility waives consideration by the commission. These statutory criteria guide our decision today. They provide the standard for our review and analysis, and if the proposed transaction appears to do any of them, the commission may, not shall, deny the transaction. I will note upfront that as stated in commission staff's memo, they did not find any evidence that the acquisition of High Noon would substantially impair the efficiency of the service of either WEBCO, WPSC, or MG&E. Therefore, my legal analysis of the statutory criteria focused only on the second and third components. Now I'll briefly discuss the approach I took to this docket to provide insight and set the stage for my positions on the decision items before us today. Those familiar with the PSC's acquisition or construction review process will recognize that modeling is a tool used to build portions of the record of evidence that the commission then analyzes and considers when making its determinations. To aid in our analysis and help inform our decision-making in this docket, each applicant undertook rigorous modeling that tested various scenarios to provide evidence in support of their request to purchase their respective ownership shares of the project. While much of the record and memo are rightfully dominated by and focused on modeling scenarios and results, I'm a lawyer and not a statistician, and there are other pieces of evidence and real-world circumstances and uncertainties that factored into my overall analysis and decisions here. I considered the totality of the record and applied the evidence to the applicable statutes governing this decision. Again, this was not a purely mechanical exercise predicated solely on modeling results. Rather, I considered various and holistic evidence in evaluating the statutory criteria. There's also a degree of subjectivity built into the criteria as well as discretion built into our process. For instance, without a crystal ball, how do we determine with certainty whether a facility is in excess of probable future requirements and how far ahead is future defined? A year, 3, 10, 20? And if we are able to arrive with confidence at an answer to this in spite of the uncertainties, we still need to decide if the excess is unreasonable, a subjective determination within the eyes of the decision maker. This transaction also requires us to analyze if the facilities add to the cost of service without proportionately increasing the value or available quantity of service, which represents an additional criterion that can rely on data and modeling to help determine the quantifiable aspects of value and/or available quantity. But what about value that cannot be quantified or captured in a model? Proportionality also includes elements of subjectivity, and ultimately this determination is likewise in the eyes of the decision makers. To drive the point home with another specific project example, let's discuss the challenges of modeling the battery energy storage system or BESS portion of this acquisition. BESS is hard to model due to the fact that when a battery is not fully charged, it represents a load on the system. The modeling doesn't fully take in the broader big picture benefits of co-locating solar and batteries. As we've seen in prior records, co-locating solar and batteries is recognized as a worldwide best practice because the BESS couples an intermittent resource with firm capacity, which also diversifies the utility's resources. So while it's necessary to model BESS in analyzing the entirety of the record, I'm not overly concerned about how BESS performed in the modeling, nor am I interested in bifurcating these systems. This is an example where the actual real-world benefits of co-location of batteries with intermittent resources can outweigh how they perform in modeling exercises. All of this is layered with the fact that the world we are currently living in is, in one word, volatile. As a commissioner, one of my goals is to be a risk mitigator. We need to consider the risk impacts of denying the request before us and whether or not that exposes utilities and customers to an amount of risk that cannot be forecasted nor modeled. Lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't add that as I was digging into this record, it was clear to me that these models implicitly relied on aspects of the applicant's integrated resource plans, yet Wisconsin is a regulatory jurisdiction that cannot require its regulated entities to submit IRPs. Without those, we are often tasked with making important decisions in a vacuum without the whole picture in front of us. In a valiant effort, staff here had the applicants undertake additional modeling to account for some of the applicants' other pending applications as we attempted to piece together a record that accounted for both MISO's IRP information and the applicant's generation resource plans. Now, with that stage set, I will walk through the 3 applicants individually and briefly explain my position on their acquisition request. I won't spend too much time discussing the extensive modeling and analysis of each of these. Rather, as I foreshadowed, I will highlight the considerations and reasoning that aided in my decision-making in an attempt to connect the dots between the modeling and other evidence in the record to the statutory criteria governing these decisions. Our first decision item is WEBCO's acquisition. WEBCO requests to acquire 75% of High Noon, which represents 225 megawatts of solar, and 123.75 megawatts of BESS. Given that the NCAA National Championship game occurred on Monday, I felt it appropriate to include a basketball reference in my comments. WEPCO's acquisition of High Noon is a slam dunk. Modeling results and other relevant evidence demonstrated imminent capacity needs attributable to several factors, and that the acquisition is part of WEPCO's least cost generation expansion plan, a significantly higher bar to clear than the statutory criteria in 196.493B that govern our decisions today. In light of this, it is abundantly clear to me that WEPCO's acquisition of 75% of High Noon would not provide facilities unreasonably in excess of probable future requirements, nor would it add to the cost of service without proportionally increasing the value of available quantity of service. Therefore, for this decision item, I'm at alternative 1, which would approve the transaction for WEPCO as proposed. Moving on to our second decision item, WPSC's acquisition. They request to acquire 15% of High Noon, which represents 45 megawatts of solar and 24.75 megawatts of BESS. While WPSC's modeling results were not as definitive as WEPCO's, several scenarios demonstrated the need for and cost effectiveness of this acquisition. The record indicates WPSC's need for additional generation capacity, but modeling results and analysis called into question the timing of this need. Modeling results are only part of what factored into my overall analysis of WPSC's request, because while important, they cannot and do not tell the whole story. There is other compelling evidence to consider, and in their comments to the memo, this applicant did an excellent job illustrating that point through the provision of several well-articulated facts that I found relevant, informative, and compelling. Many of these key points highlighted issues that were not or could not be accurately reflected in the modeling, such as the 2024 greenhouse gas rule currently in effect, and increases in long-term capacity needed due to recent changes to resource accreditation methods. The key points also included benefits of the acquisition that provide value, but were not accounted for in the modeling, such as the fact that High Noon helps WPSC reduce its carbon footprint and further diversifies its portfolio of generation resources, which strengthens grid reliability and resiliency, along with WPSC's ability to serve customers cost-effectively. Finally, the key points noted that while timing concerns related to need were raised in the memo, future solar project costs are likely to increase, resulting in projects that are more expensive than High Noon, and that it's nearly impossible to match exact demand changes with resource additions. These projects take time, often face delays, and forcing WPSC to wait for a different future opportunity will likely be more expensive and provide less value to customers. I'm concerned that if WPSC's acquisition request is not approved, the utility may have to acquire or construct a separate resource in future years to meet this same need. Given the unknowns of tariff policies, supply chain issues, and inflationary pressures referenced in the memo and comments, it's likely a future project would come at a greater cost than High Noon, especially if WPSC does not have the opportunity to partner with other utilities and take advantage of economies of scale, cost-saving benefits that are built into an acquisition like this. In applying these facts to the statutory criteria, it's clear to me that WPSC's acquisition of 45 megawatts of solar and 24.75 megawatts of BESS does not provide facilities unreasonably in excess of probable future requirements, nor will it add to the cost of service without proportionately increasing the value or quantity of service. Therefore, for this decision item, I am at alternative 1, approve the transaction for WPSC as proposed. Our third decision item relates to MG&E's request to acquire 10% of High Noon, which represents 30 megawatts of solar and 16.5 megawatts of BESS. Some of my comments here are similar to WPSC. While the modeling was not definitive regarding MG&E's acquisition, numerous modeling scenarios demonstrated MG&E's need for High Noon, as well as the proportional value of the acquisition in relation to its cost. Most of the uncertainty arose around the timing of the need, but again, the timing issue is neither conclusive nor a poison pill to the acquisition. Echoing my earlier comments, the modeling results are only part of what factored into my overall analysis of MG&E's request, because while important, they cannot and do not tell the whole story. There's other compelling evidence to consider. MG&E is only requesting to acquire a small portion of a larger resource through joint ownership. Partnering with multiple other utilities on the High Noon project provides MG&E the ability to add additional resources in a more measured and incremental manner to diversify its mix and limit its risk exposure to fuel price volatility and in the event that other resources are out of service. For a small service territory that is restrained by land and water boundaries, this acquisition also financially and geographically diversifies its generation investments, which further mitigates risk. In addition, High Noon's environmentally responsible generation helps further MG&E in the state's carbon reduction goals and aids in their transition to cleaner energy sources, while the best component increases reliability. These real-world actual benefits of the acquisition should not be overlooked. Quantifiable or not, they provide widespread value and are appropriately considered in a holistic and pragmatic analysis of the acquisition. MG&E's need for additional generation capacity is established in the record, and while the exact timing of that need may be less clear in modeling results, it's impossible to perfectly marry the timing of capacity needs and resource additions. Lucky for us, the second statutory criterion does not delineate a specific time period or range, but merely references probable future requirements, a subjective baseline that provides room for commissioners' discretion and reality-based analysis. I am not overly concerned about the timing of need, given evidence in the record regarding projected in-service dates, plant retirements, and evolving resource adequacy requirements and reliability risks occurring now and in the near future. The third criterion is also satisfied here. It's important to note that this statutory standard is not a least cost requirement. Instead, it focuses on the relationship between adding to the cost of service and increasing the value or available quantity of service. These dynamics need to be proportionate. Again, this test encompasses subjectivity and discretion in determining proportionality and measuring value. Are marginal increases proportionate? If so, to what degree? How do we measure value that can't be quantified or captured in a model? In light of the facts in the record and given our discretion, I am comfortable concluding that the acquisition proportionally increases the value and quality of service for MG&E's quantity of service for MG&E's customers as related to the cost. MG&E's service territory is one of the fastest growing regions in the nation, and the local economy is booming. If MG&E's partial ownership share of High Noon is not approved, it will likely need to construct and/or pursue alternative projects in the near future to meet the same need established here. And during that delay, costs will likely escalate. Absent clear evidence in the record that one of the governing statutory criteria is triggered by this acquisition, I am not comfortable denying this minuscule portion of the acquisition now and likely force one of our smallest IOUs to pursue other more expensive projects that may not be right-sized or advantageously located and under later, more expensive market conditions. A pursuit that could have a much harder time satisfying the statutory criteria in 196.493 sub 3 sub B than what is before us today. For these reasons, I'm at alternative 1, approve the transaction for MG&E as proposed in the application. Our final decision item today is about order conditions. Commission staff have identified 19 order conditions for our consideration from similar previous commission decisions that may be applicable to the proposed transaction in this docket. I'm supportive of including all 19 of these conditions. The applicants filed comments objecting to condition 11 and offered a modification to it. In general, this commission is concerned about cost overruns, and it is a serious issue we are attempting to get a better handle on. While I do not support the applicant's requested edit to this condition, I do think the condition as written somewhat misses the mark of where we want to be in terms of the consistent and thorough treatment of cost overruns. We need to further examine and articulate our approach to the cost overruns challenge, but with that being said, I can support this condition as is today because it's similar to language used in recent buy-sell dockets, and we do need something here as we continue to evaluate our cost overruns approach going forward. Therefore, for the commission alternatives, again, I'm at alternative 1, approve the transaction per the alternatives selected above with all conditions proposed by commission staff. I will now turn this discussion over to my colleagues so that they can share their positions on these issues. Commissioner Nieto.
Thank you, Chair Strand. I'm coming into the discussion today also at a starting point of Alt 1 for all of the decision points that we have in front of us. I really appreciated hearing your remarks and the analysis that got you to that point. Looking forward to hearing Commissioner Hawkins' remarks and analysis as well. I can share really briefly why I'm at Alt 1 on each of these. With regard to authorizing the acquisition for the 3 applicants, like you said, the case for WEPCO is incredibly conclusive. Looking at the cases for WPSC and MG&E, there are a few more judgment calls there in terms of the what we're left to do after looking at the modeling results. And like you said, the modeling results aren't the only input, and there are inputs that aren't included in the models. So the models, they're not modeling EPL priorities, for example. This is high on the EPL priority. And like you said, a denial at this point might force a more expensive project a couple years down the road. This is diversification of the portfolio, limiting exposure to fuel cost volatility, changes upcoming at MISO, et cetera. Those are all value adds on top of what we're seeing in the models. Number two, the incremental PVRR was relatively low for MG&E and WPS as well. And then third, from an incredibly practical standpoint, we don't have a lot of, we don't have opposition in the record evidence, and we have good thorough discussion of modeling and good work by staff and the applicant to give us ample modeling evidence, and that's kind of the totality of where we're at, very similar to your analysis. In terms of those order conditions, I was at the same spot. I would not accept including force majeure terminology into our order condition for a number of reasons. I think we've seen in other cases that the contractual definition used by parties of force majeure actually changes from one amendment to another. We don't want to link to that there. I think the order language that we have suggested here and that we're using right now is good enough for me. In the future, I'm in the exact same spot that as we continue to work on this, we've talked about tightening cost control measures in about 6 different dockets now, and that's what we're working on. It's the work on this is midstream. I wouldn't tinker with the language right now while it's midstream, but when we get there, I do have a few specific things that I might add or modify with the way we use this language, and that'll be consistent with what staff is kind of presenting to us and coming up with at that time. So I don't think I need to make any minor tweaks or anything at this point. So with all of that said, I'm at alt ones across the board here.
Thank you,
Thanks.
and thank you for the discussion on the order points. You articulated very well. Thank you. Commissioner Hawkins?
Thank you both, and appreciate all of your comments and agree with all of your comments. I'm in the same place on all 4 of our decision items, and really echo what was said about the need to consider both the modeling and also the more hard to quantify and subjective pieces, and was disappointed we didn't have a basketball reference for the other 2 decisions, but agree with the slam dunk characterization. I was really eager to see what you said for the rest of them. Anyhow, I couldn't think. I've been working on it this whole time. But I just wanted to say, just to sort of add to what's already been said, that I really do appreciate the detailed work that staff has done to assess this application, especially the complex modeling that was done. The need case by the applicants was very heavily scrutinized and evolved over time, over the length of this application. And so overall, there was sufficient evidence in the record for me to feel comfortable proving the transactions for both the modeled and the harder to quantify arguments that Chair Strand mentioned. I agree that piecing all that together is a very important part of my decision-making process, and that was done by all of the applicants. That said, I have some concerns with how the applicants presented the need and how staff had to sort of go back and forth, and it just seemed like a lot of work. And so I'm really sympathetic to the way that the applicants had to do this, partly because of the lack of guidance from the commission on how you demonstrate need or what the need is that they're planning towards. And you talked about the timing piece is open-ended. And so, and there's also the recent major changes related to resource adequacy that further complicate things. And I think that just sets us up for a lot of work on the part of staff to kind of have to churn and piece things together. And they did a really great job of laboriously bringing the record together through data requests and things like that. So I just wanted to highlight that I think this case perfectly underscores the urgency of our RA standards and requirements docket. And the good news is that all of the questions and concerns that I had when reviewing this docket were already set out in our scoping discussion from last November. So all of the things that sort of raised flags for me, we've already identified as things that we need to do as homework. And so I think we just really need to continue the dialogue on those issues, such as the expectations of out-year planning guidelines are very dated. Planning guidelines were referenced by all the applicants as sort of their last touch point as where what they've heard from the commission is what they should plan towards. And we talked about in that scoping decision how the recent RA changes might need to be accounted for, and we saw staff and the applicants working through that in this. So I just wanted to point to that as something that I think is important that we try to provide clarity on as soon as possible to help both administratively reduce the burden on staff and then make these types of things more consistent as well, just because we saw a lot of differences and that just makes everything a little harder to sift through. So with that, I'm at Alt 1 on all 4 of the decisions before us, and I'll conclude.
Thank you, and thank you for highlighting all the work that staff put into the very extensive modeling that took place here, and also for tying it back to, the resource adequacy docket, the scoping memo or statement, and similar to what Commissioner Nietzsche said about order conditions, just how it works kind of midstream, but all these things are continuing to not only turn in the background, but also be presented to us as part of our decision-making process. So hopefully we'll just continue to make progress on all of those things. Other than that, I think that we're ready for a motion on this one.
All right, in docket 5 BS 276, I move we approve the applicant's acquisition of High Noon Solar consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That brings us to our next discussion item, which is number 27, docket 137 CE 209, the application of American Transmission Company as an electric public utility for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to construct and operate the Western Feed Transmission Line project. For this item, Commissioner Hawkins is going to lead our discussion, so I will turn it over to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Strand. Today, we will decide on the merits of the application by ATC for a CPCN to construct and operate the Western Feed Transmission Line in the village of Mount Pleasant. In leading the discussion today, I will provide a brief overview of the project, and then we will walk through the contested items in the order that they appear in our decision matrix, which I'll use as a guide for our discussion today. Before we dive in, I would like to thank all of those that participated in the development of the record for the proceeding, and that includes the applicant, commission staff, and all those who submitted comments. And I just want to highlight the public comments. I really do appreciate them. They helped guide my review of what to look for and review a second or third time in the record. And I was really encouraged by the fact that many of the major questions and recommendations raised by commenters were considered throughout the review process, including data requests, the work of DNR, and others. So I saw a lot of connections between the concerns of the public and the concerns of staff at both the PSC and DNR. So just wanted to highlight that. And all of that just gives me a great deal of confidence in our process. And I also appreciate the leadership and vocal nature of the local governments that participated. We heard from quite a few different units of local governments in the public comments. So quick overview of the project. When it comes to reviewing a CPCN, the size and complexity of the project determines our review process. When reviewing a transmission project, the commission has to consider alternative sources of supply and alternative routes, as well as the need, engineering, economic safety, reliability, individual hardships, and potential environmental effects. One thing that I would like to just clarify is that we are deciding on many aspects of this project today, but we are not deciding on how costs of this project are ultimately recovered. This project that was proposed by ATC consists of 2 sets of new double-circuited 345 kV transmission lines, 1 set of double-circuited 138 and 345 kV lines, 1 single-circuit 345 kV line, 2 new 345 kV substations, as well as 2 STATCOMs and a capacitor bank. So a mix of all sorts of fun transmission technologies there. This project is the first in a series of upgrades driven by the need to connect new large loads currently under construction in southeastern Wisconsin, and the new loads are anticipated to start coming online later this year. 2 Two proposed routes were outlined in detail in the application, and after a consideration of a wide variety of different transmission solutions and possible routes, we are left looking at two detailed cases on alternative routes. There is a preferred route, which is approximately 3.6 miles long. The north route is what the preferred route is also referred to as, and the project in total comes to $625.2 million with the preferred route, and the alternate route or the south route is just slightly longer and slightly more expensive at $626.2 million. Both routes share a common component that is about 6 miles in length, and both also share the two 345 kV substations, the StatComs and the capacitor banks in common. So there's a lot of overlap between the two. Just so I don't bury the lead, I'm going to give a summary of my position, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues to see if they have any opening remarks. Overall, I do support the approval of this CPCN application based on the demonstrated need by the applicant. Both the applicant and staff have verified that the project is needed to meet reliability standards associated with serving these new large loads. ATC has demonstrated that the existing transmission facilities in the area are unable to serve the load reliably. We will go through what led me to that through our decision matrix discussion here. There are 12 issues that we're going to have to talk through. 2 of them are uncontested. That would be issues 4 and 11. So I will walk us through that after I turn things over to my colleagues to see if they have anything before we dive in. Chair Strand.
Thank you. I don't have any additional comments, but I just want to thank you for leading our discussion and for digging so thoroughly into this, and for those opening remarks, which really help set the tone and the stage for the discussion today. So thank you, and echo your thank yous in the comments. Thank you.
Same here, just would echo your thank yous to everybody's work on this and for the comments as well.
Awesome. So with that, we will kick things off with issue 1. And under the requirements of the statute, again, the commission may reject the project if it finds that the project would do one or more of the following: substantially impair the efficiency of utility service, provide facilities unreasonably in excess of future requirements, or would add to the cost of service without proportionally increasing the value or available quantity of service. So we examine those requirements considering load growth forecasts, reliability standards for transmission, as well as the total project costs and benefits. And to make the case for this project, the applicant cited significant increase in loads that they received in the form of load interconnection requests, and the inability of the distribution system to accommodate that load and the required interconnection to the transmission system. So my position on issue 1 here is that ATC does have an obligation to serve these new loads and has adequately demonstrated the need and verified that this project is needed to resolve a wide variety of thermal and voltage issues that would occur in the absence of this project. And staff also were able to verify the modeling that was provided by the applicant. And so ultimately, given this obligation to serve the new loads and the demonstration of need, I am at alternative 1 for issue 1. Chair Strand.
Thank you. This is a great example of how so much of what we do is, no pun intended, all connected. But yes, I'm at alternative 1 on this as well. Thank you.
Alt 1 as well. Thanks.
Awesome. So issue 2, let's see here. So issue 2 is, will the proposed project, if constructed, provide usage, service, or increase regional reliability benefits to the wholesale and retail customers or members in this state? And are the benefits of the proposed project reasonable in relation to the cost of the proposed project as provided in WIS Stat 196.491? So I am at, yes, the project provides usage and increased service and acceptable levels of reliability given the cost. The reliability benefits, again, were clearly demonstrated, and the incorporation of StatComs and the capacitor banks provide regional reliability benefits in southeastern Wisconsin and maintain adequate levels of voltage, and that was demonstrated well, I thought, in the modeling. So I am at Alt 1 for issue 2.
Alt 1, thank you.
Alt 1.
All right, issue 3 is the EPL requirements, and For this one, the commission has an obligation to consider these priorities in all energy-related decisions, given the purpose of this project is to interconnect a new large load and network upgrades are required to reliably serve the new load. None of the energy priorities would sufficiently satisfy the needs of this project, so I am at Alt 1 for this issue.
Alt 1, thank you.
Alt 1 as well.
Issue 4 is uncontested, so we will move along to issue 5. And issue 5 is closely related to issue 6, so I will take these up together and then turn things over to my colleagues. A requirement for issuance of a CPCN is determining that the project route would not unreasonably interfere with the orderly land use and development plans for the area involved in the project. In order to figure out what the area involved in the project is, we have to choose a route so that we can make both of these decisions together. And so given that they're related, I will talk about both as I mentioned. So based on the investigations into land use and the detailed impact assessments to both the natural and human environment in the area of the projects and the consideration of potential future planning, I am comfortable with the conclusions that there are no conflicts that would lead me to question the compliance with this statute. Turning to issue 6, based on the 2 routes examined in detail, I support the preferred route, specifically with segment 3B. I believe that this is the appropriate route due to lesser impacts on woodlands, nearby residential properties, and waterways. This route also parallels existing rights-of-way to the greatest extent possible. And as shown in Figure 3 of the appendix, there's a decision between segment 3A of the preferred route and 3B. 3B avoids a residential property and woodlands that would be crossed if 3A was chosen. So while 3B does require an additional road crossing, it does avoid residential and woodland impacts. And so in summary, I am at Alt 1 for issue 5 and Alt 1 with segment 3B for issue 6. And I will turn it over to Chair Strand.
Thank you. I'm in the same place on both issue 5 and issue 6. Thank you.
Same here on both with the 3B as well.
Great. Turning on to issue 7, which is related to general conditions, and asks what conditions suggested by commission staff should be attached to construction of the proposed project to meet the requirements of commission approval. And for this one, given the scope of the proposed project and the potential environmental impacts, I agree with all of staff's suggested conditions here in issue 7A, conditions 1 through 15, and so I'm at Alt 1.
Alt 1, thank you.
Alt 1.
Issue 7B is related to a specific condition on line-of-sight communications and the requirement that the applicant remedy any demonstrated line-of-sight communication impacts that landowners might experience. And this condition is not new for the commission. I believe it is important that we have these protections for potentially affected landowners. And given the past precedent on this one, I am at Alt 1 and continuing to include this condition.
Alt 1, thank you.
Alt 1 as well.
7C is a condition, let me get my notes here, specific to the information that is expected as part of quarterly progress reports submitted to the commission. While the applicant does not agree with the inclusion of 2 of the sub-bullets in this condition related to, I guess it's sub-bullets E and G, the hiring of Wisconsin workers and reported number of Wisconsin residents versus out-of-state employees on the project. This is a condition that we've recently included in a similar case, and I believe that the commission should remain where it is on this issue. Further, I just want to highlight that the applicant could easily require this information of anyone that it chooses to contract with and should be able to get it if it is made a requirement of a contractor. So I am at alternative 1.
Thank you. I'm in strong agreement. Remain baffled at the applicant's continued opposition to this condition or these reporting requirements. One would assume that a homegrown company like ATC would have a robust initiative for hiring Wisconsin workers and ensuring that their projects maximize economic and ancillary benefits to their state, to our state. And I think it's just a no-brainer to try to encourage project applicants and developers and contractors to use Wisconsin workers. And we're not requiring or setting specific labor goals. We are in full awareness of the need to, hire workers from out of state or use revolving employees. Nothing that we're asking for here will preclude that. So again, I think all of condition 7C is necessary for the approval, and I'm hoping that we can maybe move forward with the applicant on this one specifically.
Same here. I was at Alt 1 for the same reasons.
Great. So issue 8 is project-specific conditions, and we have a list in the decision matrix related to specific environmental resource conditions that would be imposed as a condition of approval. And these were suggested by DNR and aimed at helping avoid indirect impacts to wetlands and waterways during the construction of the project. And I'll note that there were comments, public comments made in the record that highlighted concerns related to these very same types of impacts. And so I view these conditions as a comprehensive set that are intended to address those very concerns that were raised by local residents. So I'm at Alt 1 for this issue.
Thank you. Very quickly, in past dockets, I have objected to some similar conditions due to my concerns that they were somewhat unnecessarily duplicative, which could negatively impact projects through higher costs and schedule delays. Here, I support them, given your point to addressing issues raised in the public comments and the uncontested nature of this item and the applicant's support of these conditions. I do still feel going forward that conditions that are labeled project-specific do need to be just that. They need to be specific and relevant to the unique aspects of the project, its location, comments raised by the public, et cetera, and not just copied and pasted from one project to another. So again, I absolutely will join you at alternative 1 on this, but continue to have certain expectations for these project-specific conditions going forward. Thank you.
And I am at Alt 1 on these, same.
All right, issue 8B is a modified order condition suggested by DNR aimed at reducing the impacts to wetlands and waterways during construction. And this is one we've gotten a bit more regular in our requirements, and it seems that we've settled on some agreeable language. So I'm very happy to be at Alt 1 on this one.
Alt 1 to the maximum extent practicable. Thank you.
Alt 1.
8C regarding project cost estimates. It's a condition related to project cost estimates. Let's see here. It's basically requiring guidance for reporting project costs and provides visibility into the applicant's original estimates and the contingency costs that are built into those estimates. This condition can help ensure, it's my opinion, visibility into the accuracy of the contingency cost estimates that we originally receive in our applications, and shed some light on what drives changes between the original costs that we receive very early on in the application projects and the final realized costs. I recognize the value and purpose of including contingency costs in the original estimates for projects. But I think this reporting requirement will just help provide the commission staff with a benchmark on those estimates and help us assess the reasonableness of them, and just provide general insights into the drivers of cost changes. And we spoke earlier about trying to get a better handle on cost overruns. I think this condition will help us in that aim. So I am at Alt 1 for this.
Thanks. I'm in a slightly different spot for reasons that I'll explain. So first, we did just approve the standard conditions in 7A that included provision Roman numeral 8 that states, if it's discovered or identified that the project cost, including force majeure costs, may exceed the estimated cost, the applicant shall, within 30 days of when it becomes aware of the possible change or cost increase, notify the commission of the accounts or categories where the costs deviate from those authorized costs, and shall itemize and segregate those costs by major accounts and provide sufficient documentation to support and explain the reasons for such deviations. So we are already covered on cost overruns. So there is a slight difference between this condition in issue 8C and the one I just read, but in my opinion, it's duplicative to have both. I think we need to pick one or the other. And as Commissioner Hawkins pointed out, the slight difference between the two does have to do with contingency costs, because the condition in 8C would require the same reporting as in 7A, Roman numeral 8, but would reduce cost reporting threshold to not include contingency costs. So as I stated in the high noon discussion that we just had, the commission is concerned about cost overruns and has been vocal about that. And that is a priority for us that we are currently working towards to at least get a better and more consistent handle on how we treat those, including by imposing reporting requirements like the one that is here already approved in 7A Roman numeral 8 to ensure that we're notified of cost overruns earlier and in a really timely manner. Regarding the modified condition in 8C, I understand that its impetus is a desire for more visibility into the accuracy of contingency costs. Personally, I'm not convinced that contingency costs are a significant enough issue or problem that we need to tackle right now, or one that warrants a modified reporting condition. To me, at this point, it feels like more of a solution in search of a problem. We have a lot, like historic levels, a lot of construction work moving through the commission process right now. And again, I think we've prioritized issues that we intend or are digging in on, like cost overruns in general. And I don't want to take our eye off the ball of that right now, midstream, and broaden that undertaking to also include further analysis of contingency costs or contingency budgets. Again, I'm just less concerned about those at this time. That doesn't mean that it may not warrant further review in the future, but I'm not convinced it needs to happen right now. And a reason for that is that provision Roman numeral 10 that we already approved in 7A does require the applicant to submit to the commission the project's final actual costs segregated by major accounts within 1 year after the in-service date. And so for those accounts or categories where actual costs deviate significantly from authorized costs, the applicant shall itemize and explain the reasons for such deviations in the final cost report. So my opinion is that this condition does provide visibility into actual project costs, which A, are actual and not estimated, and B, would include contingency funds if expended. And so I think while this submission would occur at a later date than kind of what is being sought in 8C, I would venture that that submission would likely occur at a time when we actually have more time and a fuller, more accurate cost picture that we could then dig into to start, if we're going to start analyzing contingency costs and if this issue remains a concern. So it's not a hill I'm going to die on, but I'm at alternative 4 that this condition is not necessary for approval for those reasons, especially that the cost overrun language has already been approved in 7A.
Thank you. Thanks to you both. I am coming into this one at Alt 1. Chair Strand, I appreciated the comments you just made, and I think you make some good points. Mainly the reason I'm at Alt 1 here is I thought this was a good kind of project-specific condition. In this case, the 30% contingency was a higher contingency amount than I've seen before, and I understand the reasons why, and I think the applicant did a good job of explaining why. I've seen in the past lower contingency amounts of 10% that we have, in, say, delegated construction cases, worked with the applicant to eliminate from this so that we could start reporting from a baseline of the actual estimate. And then only because this is just simply for the purposes of reporting, I thought it gave that transparency and visibility in terms of estimates over what the actual kind of conceived project cost is at this time. So I'll stick there. I mean, that said, I think Chair Strand, several of your points are good points as well. And this is one of those where it's tricky because we have some of the midstream things going on. We have some project-specific things going on. And then we have, to your point, the duplication as well. And I think if we're eliminating duplication, we need to do that on one side or the other here. So thank you.
Thank you both for the conversation on this one. And I just wanted to circle back on a couple things. I thought Chair Strand raised some good points. I was also motivated on this one by the applicant's initial request for approval of 110% of the project cost, which has the contingency in it, and then another contingency. And so I thought it would be really valuable to have this more timely review of costs, especially given the fact that throughout the application, they mention other related projects that are coming related to the same large load. And so as staff is dealing with potentially more applications, it might be helpful to get this information sooner than later as we are, trying to assess the reasonableness of costs in future projects. So I'm still at Alt 1 and just wanted to add those 2 additional reasons there.
I'll stay, but we can keep going.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I would stay too, but would we want to remove the duplicate condition, or are we fine with having, I don't think it's 100% necessary, but is there a preference on either of your parts?
I see. So the duplicate one would be the first Roman numeral one that Chair Strand was talking about.
This would replace that
And
to be
allow it to
clear-
replace it and
more
be
clarity.
specific. Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay. I believe,
Hold on. Just to clarify, so you're in agreement that that would replace, and I just want to make sure we have.
it's just the overrun one, not the final cost. So that would be,
It's in 7A, and it's Roman numeral 8.
That's right.
Got it. So everyone's in agreement that 8C?
No,
will-
I'm still opposed, but they're in agreement of replacing 7A 8 with 8C.
Got it.
well said. We are now at, I believe, 8D. Thank you. Okay. So this is a condition regarding competitive bids, and it requires a summary of competitive bids for work and equipment procurement get summarized for the commission. I think this condition is critical and would be great to see how ratepayers are getting the best value from this type of selection process. Going forward, I think it might be more appropriate to include this as part of an application process and then again as a condition of approval, both before and after, just to help us assess the reasonableness of costs and gain insights into any bids or agreements that happen prior to the application process. Some of those were referenced in this application, and so we could maybe get some of that sooner and then also require on the back end. So given the precedent on this one and the fact that the applicant is not opposed, I'm at Alt 1 for 8D.
Alt 1, yay, construction project, transparency.
I'm at Alt 1 as well, and appreciate your comments about working this into whether it's initial data requests or application filing requirements.
Issue 9 is uncontested, and 9A is a condition regarding annual environmental impact fees, reasonable to impose as a condition of approval. I'm at Alt 1 on this one.
Alt 1, good catch by staff in terms of our responsibilities for 345 KV. Thank you.
Alt 1, thanks.
Issue 10 is the WEPA compliance, and I am at Alt 1 that the commission has complied with WEPA.
Alt 1.
Alt 1,
10B is, will the proposed project have undue adverse impacts on other environmental values as provided under WISSTAT 196.491, 3D4. I am at Alt 1, no, the proposed project will not have undue adverse impacts.
Alt 1.
Alt 1,
Issue 11 is uncontested. And 12, should the commission grant the CPCN for the proposed project? I am at Alt 2, yes, the commission should grant the CPCN for the project with modifications or conditions as discussed.
Alt 2.
same here, Alt 2. Or Alt 1,
No,
or I'm sorry, Alt 2, sorry.
usually I mess that one up.
No,
All right.
my turn.
Thank you. I think we're probably ready for a motion on this. Do you have everything you need?
I think so, yeah, we got
Okay.
that.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you for leading discussion. Good job.
Awesome.
All right. In docket 137, CE 209, I move we approve the construction of the Western Feed Transmission Line project with modifications or conditions consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that does conclude our official business for today. Our next open meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 24th, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we stand adjourned until Thursday, April 24, 2025 at 10:30 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.